and welcome to Real Horror. I'm Anna Dixon. Who are you?
I'm Eve Oliver, and I've got little Hilda with me today, which is nice.
That is nice. Hi, Hilda's back.
There she is.
Hilda's bottom. That's nice.
Just fun, just fun.
I've got Ash just here, so there will be screaming from either Mike or Ash. I'm not sure.
Oh no.
Or maybe you. Anyway, so you know the drill. We're here to talk about a true crime story. Usually we go quite hysterical. Mine's from 2010, which feels sort of starts in 2000.
Oh no. Like last year.
It feels quite recent, but it probably isn't. You know, people have gone to high school now who were born in 2010, maybe. I don't know. That might not be true.
My brain. Yeah, they'd be like secondary school age.
Yeah, so that's,
Crazy.
Childhood ago. That's my experience.
Oh, that's crazy.
So this week I am going to tell Eve a story with Ash's help. Eve is then, or we are then going to try and turn it into a horror movie based around the facts of this case. Eve will somewhere have a little red flag.
It's a flag.
So if she finds something suspicious in the telling of my tale,
raise the red flag.
But I like to try and trick Eve, so
I'm very easily fooled as well. So
that is well known. So I'm hoping that I will be able to this time, and I'm hoping it's not one she's heard of, because that's the problem we're doing, surprising each other with true crime stuff.
Yeah,
we both listen to the same true crime stuff.
Yeah. Are we fine?
So actually our story begins, I'm going to begin our story on the 27th of December 2011. What were you doing then?
27th. Oh, do you know what? Oh no, I got confused. I thought the 27th was the 23rd, which is like our annual get together for a certain group of friends, and I could have been like, I could tell you exactly what I was doing, but it's the wrong date. So no, I have no idea.
If it was a day 10 years ago, a day in between Christmas and New Year, I would have been in the pub.
Nice. Probably
from when the pub opened to whenever they forced me to leave the pub. And then the following day as well. So it wasn't me, whatever happened. I've probably got an alibi.
Fair.
I was probably in Roper Hall in Preston.
Nice.
Drinking flavoured cider. Anyway.
Amazing.
Let's find out.
Sounds like a good day.
Let's find out what Russ Faria is the chap we're going to talk about first. What he was doing on the 27th of December 2011. So, on that day, there's a 911 call from Russ Faria. This is in America, obviously. Otherwise, he'd have called.
Otherwise, he's not got through to anyone.
I can't remember where it is in America. And America's big, but it was somewhere in America. He had returned home to find his wife, Betsy Faria, dead on the living room floor.
I mean, it's probably not, but we've watched too much true crime to know what's going on here. Found her dead. Sorry.
Her wrists were slit horizontally. So he had assumed that she'd killed herself. She had actually attempted suicide a couple of times before. Once he'd stopped her, another time a policeman had stopped her from jumping off a bridge. And she was committed after that for a little while. But by all accounts was perfectly happy now. He was absolutely hysterical on the phone. The police attended. And it turned out that Betsy had been stabbed. What's funny is that one thing I read, she'd been stabbed over 55 times. She'd been stabbed 56 times. But one thing I read said she'd been stabbed over 55 times.
like last one.
And
oh my gosh. Okay, wow.
One of her arms was nearly severed. Stuck in her neck was a serrated kitchen knife, which was obviously the murder weapon, or the suicide weapon, if she'd indeed stabbed herself
over 55 times.
And then slit her wrist. Unsurprisingly, Russ was interviewed by the police following this. So what he was doing that night, he'd left work, where obviously people had seen him. He'd run a few errands, gone to a petrol station, bought some stuff. He called his mum to say he wouldn't be coming to her house for his tea, as he normally did, I think, and spent the evening with friends, watching films until about 9 o'clock. At some point in that
That's a lot to fit in. Like, I'm not like disputing it, but like, bloody hell, to be home by 9 after all of that, that's mad. But,
yeah. By 9, he left his friend's house at 9. He got home at 9:40. And at some point during that evening, Betsy had called him to say she had some news and they would talk when she got in. So he was sort of expecting her to be fine. And he, at 9:40, he got home, found her dead. All the friends that he had spent the evening with said that that was the case. He'd left at 9, and it would make sense for him to be getting home at 9:40. So that's him. That's where we are with him.
Wow. Okay.
Betsy, his wife, a little bit of background on her. She had stage 4 cancer. It was a terminal diagnosis. She had previously been given the all clear, but it had now metastasized into her liver, and she was expected to live another couple of years. She was still having chemotherapy. I know this is cheerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
She was still having chemotherapy, which is what she'd been doing that day. She then visited her mum's house, after which her close friend Pam Hupp had then picked her up and dropped her off at her house at 7. So she got home at 7, he got home at 9:40, and she was dead. Are you with me so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are we feeling red flag wise? We loving everyone?
I'm not red flagging yet.
Okay.
But
red flagged on the
second. You already said you're going to trick me, so I'm a bit twitchy.
Never. Okay. So Pam obviously dropped her off. So the police interviewed Pam. It transpired, I think Betsy had stayed at her mum's house the night before, and they asked her why. And she said that Betsy didn't particularly like to drive, which is why she was driving her, but also that she didn't like going home. The Farias, Russ and Betsy, had been separated around 7 times, to Pam's knowledge. Betsy was a bit fearful of Russ, and that he played odd games where he would put a pillow over Betsy's face.
I mean, that's not a game, really, is it?
No, Monopoly's a game.
Yeah. Not a fan of Ross. You're not doing well.
No. At first, Betsy's family were fairly convinced Russ couldn't have done it. Everybody said Russ couldn't have done it. But as time went on, they said there was the odd thing where, he was very cross. He would swear at Betsy's 2 kids from a previous relationship had called to say that he was angry and swearing. Nothing sort of particularly violent was mentioned at this stage, but they sort of started to come around to the idea that maybe
apart from like pillow holding.
Yeah. Apart from pillow holding. Okay. So, 2012.
Okay.
Betsy's funeral on the 3rd of January. Russ was arrested the following day on the 4th for her murder. $250,000 bail. He couldn't meet the bail, so he was held until his trial in November 2013. We're getting closer to now.
We are. We're zooming along. This is where you're like, and yesterday he was released from prison.
Me. Okay, his trial was on November 2013. This was the prosecution's case. Betsy had quite a few life insurance policies. Personal one, work one. She was going to die fairly imminently in the next couple of years, but he was ready for that money now. She'd obviously attempted suicide before, so he could make this look like a suicide. I would argue that stabbing someone 55 or 56 times doesn't make it look like a suicide.
No, that's a really bad attempt to... Yeah.
Although the prosecution did say it was ludicrous that anyone could think that Betsy had committed suicide.
Yeah.
With the extent of the injuries that she had. There was blood on Russ's slippers that were hidden in a wardrobe upstairs. There were eight semen, like the number 8, found inside Betsy.
Like, what?
So the prosecution indicated that this had been a planned thing with Russ and his friends because all of his phone records, you know, they can triangulate.
Yeah.
Married up to what he was saying. So they said that he went to his friend's house where this was like a pre-planned kind of role-playing game. He left his phone there, drove home, had sex with her, violated was the word the prosecutor used, violated her one last time, stabbed her, went back to his friend's house, got his phone, came home and found the body.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
This night just got even busier than before.
I know, you thought he didn't have much time to do the stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
He must have been watching short films.
And it was his semen, definitely.
Well, we'll get onto that, but yes.
Okay, sorry.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Pam Hupp, the woman who'd driven her home that night, gave evidence at the trial, which was difficult for her, as her mother had sadly passed away the month before, so it was difficult for her to get there. But she relived all this stuff about, that Russ had been, odd with her. There was also a document found on Betsy's computer which suggested that she was frightened of Russ. It was like a sort of diary kind of thing.
Okay.
To say how frightened she was. Right, sorry.
That's okay.
Just have to scroll down. So that's...
I don't trust anyone.
So that's where we are.
Okay.
Russ was found guilty of Betsy's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Done. Right?
I know, I don't think it's him anymore because this is too straightforward.
Okay.
It's going to be a very short podcast if that's right.
Good point. Shall I carry on?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Russ had a very, very good, I think, defense attorney called Joel Schwartz.
Okay.
Who, during the trial, had said, the prosecutors had said that everybody's stories, all of his friends' stories, were really well rehearsed. They were exactly the same. There was no deviation.
Mm.
The defense attorney argued that that was because it was the truth. And they all had the same story because they were all telling the facts. And their stories didn't deviate because it was the true words. And it would marry up with purchases that Russ had made at the shops and things on the way to his friend's house, and with their witness testimony.
Okay.
But the prosecutors obviously said his friends were in on it and given him a false alibi. However, when they were coming to pay for Betsy's funeral, they realised there was a little bit of life insurance money missing, and found out that 4 days before her death, the life insurance policy, one of her life insurance policies for $150,000, was signed over to Pam Hupp, lady who dropped her off that night.
Hey, I'm not trusting her now.
Pam was asked about this, and she said, yeah, she did, because she had 2 children from a previous relationship, and she wanted her to hold it in trust. The money was put in a trust for these 2 girls, Betsy's 2 daughters, who were not Russ's. So, sorry, just let me check where I am.
So that was 4 days before.
Days before
She made that decision.
He was a bit suspicious, was Russ's lawyer. In 2014, so Russ is now in prison and has been since he was arrested because he couldn't afford the bail.
Yeah.
The Fox TV, I think there's lots of Foxes and some of them aren't evil, did an expose to say that the $150,000 trust that had been set up for the girls had been emptied and Hupp had kept the money, which was true.
Ooh.
Initially, she told the police that she'd not entered the Faria house when driving her home and then driving Betsy home, but then she changed her story and said that she had, but obviously that she'd left shortly after. Schwartz, after this, appealed the verdict. There was some things that are a bit dodgy about the police's evidence, such as there was some crime scene photographs that the officer said the camera wasn't working, but it showed a trail of cleaning fluid from the kitchen to the living room. The lawyer found those photographs. The camera was fine, it just didn't show the trail that they were talking about. So they didn't allow the photos into evidence because they said they were broken photographs, but said the jury would have to just believe this nice upstanding police officer that it showed a trail of blood. But when looking at the photos, it didn't.
Who is this police officer?
He's naughty, naughty boy. The bloodied.
He is.
Do you remember the bloodied slippers?
Yeah.
That there was no blood on the soles of them. It had looked like they'd been picked up and dipped in some blood and then hidden in the wardrobe.
That's so naughty. OMG.
Yeah. Most of the stab wounds to Betsy had been inflicted post-mortem. Probably the first 1, maybe 2 killed her. And everything else was done in such a way as to make it look like a frenzied attack, but they weren't frenzied, they were purposeful. So it would look like a kind of crime of passion, maybe.
Oh my gosh. This is horrendous. Like, not that it wasn't horrendous at the beginning, but...
Hupp was interviewed again by the police.
Yeah.
And she said that actually her and Betsy had a sexual relationship and that Russ had threatened them both, and particularly had threatened to kill Pam and bury her in his garden because of the disgusting, filthy sexual relationship they were having.
Oh my gosh.
Hupp also remembered seeing Russ Faria and another man in a car parked in the street outside the Farias' home as she drove Betsy home that night.
She saw, wait, who she saw?
She saw Russ, the husband, outside the house with another.
See, no, but I don't believe her. She might be lying now.
Seems a bit odd to say it now and not in 2011.
Yeah.
I agree. But, you know, memory can be a funny thing. She also forgot to tell the police at the time about this sexy relationship she was having.
Which I don't think you'd really forget very quick, would you? Particularly if, like,
You're
the
straight.
person that you're having the relationship with partner is like, yeah, I'm going to kill you and bury you in my garden.
Yeah, and then the wife's just turned up dead. And particularly if, yeah, both of you were married to men and straight,
Oh,
allegedly.
she's getting more and more red flaggy.
Is she?
She is a bit.
Let's see how we get on.
Okay.
In 2015, we're 6 years ago now, Russ Faria's conviction was overturned. He'd been imprisoned for slightly under 4 years, so he was going to have another trial because it was basically on the basis that, and this is a quote, the police had fabricated evidence, ignored exonerating evidence, and failed to investigate the other obvious suspect.
Okay.
So, yeah, Russ had another trial. Let's go back a little while. Do you remember the trial in 2013 and what a difficult time that was for Pam Hupp because her mother very sadly passed away.
Was she killed?
Well, she certainly fell from her balcony. So that was October 2013. Shirley, she was called, had spent the evening with Pam after a hospital visit. Pam had dropped her off at her apartment on the 30th of October around 5 p.m. and said to the staff, don't expect her for dinner tonight or breakfast in the morning, you know, she's not well. She's just had a hospital appointment. And the housekeeper found Pam's mother dead beneath the balcony of her home on Halloween night 2013. I should know what I was doing then.
Oh, that's horrendous.
Halloween stuff. The aluminium or aluminum, I suppose, as it's American, balcony railing was broken. And it was concluded that she died from blunt trauma to the chest resulting from an accidental fall. An autopsy found that she had 8 times more of a sedative called zolpidem in her bloodstream than one would expect someone to have, having taken
8 times
dose. Yeah. So that probably is what made her fall off the balcony.
Oh my gosh.
She had a bit of life insurance as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did a certain someone inherit by any chance?
So at this point, so where are we? Where are we with it's a little bit, I'm going backwards and forwards.
Yeah, so we've just gone back to 2013.
So let's skip back forward again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're back to the second trial of Russ.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
In which obviously he's found not guilty. So that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I assume it's good.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna like do another twisty turn on me.
No. No, probably not.
Maybe.
August 2016. Police are called to Pam Hupp's house, where a man called Louis Gumpenberger.
Oh, that's a good name.
Is a good name. However, he was dead, having been shot 5 times by Hupp in her home. A note was found on his body bearing instructions to kidnap Pam Hupp get Russ's money from Hupp at her bank, and then kill Hupp. Take Hupp back to the house and make it look like Russ's wife. Make sure the knife is sticking out of her neck. That was what the note said. In return for a reward of $10,000. So that's what they were looking for.
That's a lot of madness for $10,000. I don't think I'd do that.
No?
No.
I'd do all sorts. As Hupp had called 911 shortly before shooting Gumpenberger, the audio of the incident was recorded. Immediately after shooting him, Pam went to the headquarters of the police department. She went on to say that that he was armed with a knife, had jumped out of a car driven by another person. He'd accosted her while she sat in her sport utility vehicle in her garage, demanded she drive him to a bank and to retrieve Russ's money. Hupp claimed that she'd knocked the knife out of his hand, fled into her house and shot him in self-defense. So she's basically saying that in some way Russ wanted his money back from her. So her
yeah. So. Jeez.
Her cell phone records, however, showed that she'd been in this Gumpenberger's neighborhood less than an hour before the shooting, which means that her sort of saying that she'd never met him before.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was a coincidence.
No, I don't believe her.
Okay. Still in August 2016, so not long after that, Pam Hupp was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Upon being arrested, she asked to visit the bathroom where she used a ballpoint pen to stab herself in the neck and wrists in an apparent suicide attempt.
Oh, no.
Bail was set at $2 million. She was indicted for first-degree murder and armed criminal action. She appeared in court in 2017, pleading not guilty. Prosecutors wanted to seek the death penalty. Because she seemed to have just selected this guy to get him to come to her house so she could shoot him, so she could say that he'd been sent by Russ to get his...
Yeah.
So she, because she decided to enter a guilty plea, she didn't get the death penalty, but she did get life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on the 12th of August 2019, just before the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah.
The whole pandemic.
That whole thing.
In October 2020, Mark Hupp, Pam Hupp's husband, filed for divorce, describing their marriage as irretrievably broken.
I mean, yeah, at that point, probably. Like, yeah. There's not really any going back, is there?
When going back over some stuff that happened, particularly at the start, I think the police were fairly sure very quickly, as we would have been, that Russ Faria murdered his wife, because why not? But there were things like the document on the computer was written in WordPad, but she had like a Windows computer and that's an Apple document. So like it was the only...
Why not just write it in Word?
Like, yeah. Why would you... It had just been uploaded onto her computer that night. When the police interviewed, they did a one of the prosecutors was interviewing Pam Hupp, and they were basically like, "Don't you hate that defense lawyer? Oh, he's only bringing this back to court because he's like, he hates losing." But this is what the prosecutor was saying, and this was all played in court. But that was the kind they had towards her.
Wow.
basically everybody in the police force had to step down, because in the first trial, the fact that all Russ's cell phone triangulation added up and Pam's didn't at all. She was the last person to see her alive. She wasn't where she said she'd been. Her mum died in suspicious circumstances. A note was dropped off to the police to say that she thinks that someone thought that she'd killed her mum for insurance money. The insurance money was allegedly put into a trust for the two children and then just drained. And then she said it was because we were girlfriend and girlfriend, and that's why she wanted me to have her money.
Wow. So, did they ever actually have the affair, or was she making that up to make out that they were closer than they were?
No one believes that they were having an affair. No one believes that they were actually all that close. They'd worked together about 10 years ago.
Oh no.
There's Betsy Faria, who sounds cool as, by the way, was like a part-time DJ as well as other stuff.
Wow.
Much younger than Pam. They'd met at work, like as work colleagues. But when Pam got her initial breast cancer, Betsy got her initial breast cancer diagnosis, Pam sort of turned up and started sticking to her like glue and taking her to all her appointments, and even when she was sort of asked not to. Yeah, in the end, in March 2020, Russ Faria received a settlement worth over $2 million because he sued for all of the incorrect stuff.
Yeah, understandably.
She had very much killed Betsy, very much killed her mother, and very much set this guy up to come round to her house to shoot him, to say that he was after her.
Yeah. Wow.
The end of Pam Hope.
It was a roller coaster.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't say that very fluidly because it was just all over the place. So I had to write quite.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because there's things that you don't think about, like the slippers and stuff that had blood on, that it's like you had to go forward to go back and go, well, actually.
Well, there's also the semen thing. The fact that there was 8 semen in her.
So, sorry, like 8
individual ones. So most people know that when you've just had sex with somebody,
yeah,
there is millions.
Yeah.
So he said, well, yeah, we had sex on Sunday, like, and a doctor was like, yeah.
Okay.
Which is nice to know that you can be walking around 3 or 4 days later with just semen hanging out,
chilling in there. Nice.
Well, my mum isn't here for this one.
That's grim.
And it was particularly unpleasant of the prosecutor to say that he had violated his wife, like.
Yeah.
And there was a lot made of the fact that he was hysterical on the 911 call. I mean, he had just found his wife.
Yeah.
The fact that he thought it was suicide and there was 55 stab wounds, only the runs on her wrist and the stab in her neck was visible. Everything else was underneath her clothes.
Okay.
From first looking, you wouldn't have been able to tell that she'd been stabbed that many times. It just looked like she was covered in blood and her wrists were slit, and that's what he saw.
Jeez. Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's a millionaire now, but he doesn't. By all accounts, he did adore his wife, and you know, he was going to lose her anyway, but presumably thought he had a couple of years left.
Yeah, yeah. How horrendous.
Yep.
No, I did not know that one. So that was like...
That's good.
Learning as we went.
I don't think they've ever charged her for her mum's murder, but they did change the manner of her mum's death from accidental to undetermined.
Oh, So why have they not investigated it then?
They hadn't interviewed her. They hadn't spoken to her at all.
I guess
They'd
if
just
she's...
gone, oh, she must have taken 8 times her normal dose of sedative and fallen off a balcony after having hung out with Pam Hupp. And
crazy murderer daughter.
Don't go and check on her.
It's awful.
So that is the story of, well, who did I say it was about? Russ Faria, Betsy Faria.
Wow.
There's a very
well done, jeez.
There's a very good Dateline podcast series about it, because I could go on and on and on and on, because it's basically really shoddy investigations by the police, lying prosecutors really, who just decided it was the husband what did it, which we would do. That's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did that straight away.
What a horrible misandrist you are.
I know. What can I say?
Hashtag not that man. So,
oh god.
I mean, I guess, what do you think about that being made into a film? I think it's got some Gone Girl elements.
Not seen it.
Oh, in that case, I'll shut up.
Why? Would that be spoiler crazy? Okay, yeah, please shut up then.
Forget I said that and just go and watch Gone Girl.
I'm gonna.
Or read one. Depending on how much you like Ben Affleck. Or Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Yeah. How are we gonna filmize this? My new word of the day.
I mean, my idea it would ruin a film experience for you. So
sorry. Tell you what, we'll come back in a week's time after I've watched it, and then we'll turn it into a film.
Okay. Well, is there any ideas you've got?
I mean, obviously, it would be going down the route of, I think, what everyone kind of naturally would go down, of uncovering at the same time that the police, that everyone else kind of uncovered the evidence, and just kind of not even trying to build any kind of sympathy for, is it Pat the friend, isn't it? Not even building sympathy for her, but almost kind of having her out the picture. So just...
Yeah. Well, that's what I tried to do, but it gets harder to do that.
Yeah.
But you could definitely do it in a film, because you could just have her in the background.
Yeah, almost like an unspoken role for the vast majority of it. That I can't remember what I was watching. That I can't remember. But basically, the murderer was like everywhere all the time, and it was like, how are they doing this? And it just turned out that he was like a taxi driver, so it was just like he was everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and no one would think that. And it kind of like, I kind of want to go down that route with Pat, that she's at all the appointments, she's like this massive support, but at the same time she's just like best friend or friend or whatever, that doesn't really get mentioned or come into it because everyone's so focused on
I mean,
the husband.
He was the only person who really said anything all that negative about him until she said that. Then the police really honed in on him, and because they really honed in on him, but members of her family and other people,
that triggered that. So kind of what you could do is have maybe just a small comment from her, and then have the kind of police then hounding him, which opens up for the family to open up. So those are the bits that you kind of remember rather than the initial.
Yeah. If you listen to the Dateline podcast about it, which is something about Pam, which is a bit of a giveaway, he is pissed off that he's being accused of her murder.
Understandably.
Yeah. And he the police were going, your story just doesn't add up, and it really did.
And it did.
So, but I mean, who wouldn't say that? Who wouldn't get pissed off if they had killed someone? You'd be like, how dare you say I killed my wife? I love my wife.
Yeah.
You know, you hear that from everyone. The fact that he was hysterical on the 911 call. I don't know if you ever heard about the case of the chap. I can't remember which country it was in, but they were quite a well-off family. Sort of the husband and wife, quite well off, well to do. It was maybe an East Asian country. I can't remember. Anyway, they had a son and a daughter. The daughter was very academic. The son wasn't so much, and was a bit sort of like one of these terminal entrepreneurs. And there was a home invasion, and everyone but the son was killed, but he was injured. And he and he was hysterical on the 911 or 999. And it had been him what did it. He just walked in, killed his entire family for the money, basically, because he would then inherit everything. And his grandmother was devastated. Like that's the thing I remember the most, is that she remembered her little grandson boy thing and couldn't believe it. And that's so some people can fake that. So I think maybe in a film we would implicate Russ immediately. We would be like,
yeah.
And so what she did with this Gumpenberger, which is obviously the best name. So
I love that name, Gumpenberger.
He'd gone and pretended to be from NBC to his neighbourhood and said she was from Dateline, weirdly enough, who did the story about her. Offering him to pay him $1,000 to reenact a 911 call. That's what she'd said to him, allegedly.
Wow.
That's what they theorized anyway. So that's how she got him to come to her house, so that she could shoot him and then leave a note on him that said, Russ Faria made me do it.
Wow.
So we could have her mum die and that be a thing that happens in the background. And then have, him getting unfairly released from prison. And then he comes after her and stuff. And then we reveal.
Yeah.
That she is a monster.
She's crazy. Like, oh man, yeah. My mind is blown.
Good. I wanted to blow your mind. I wanted to make you hate Russ Faria at first as well, which I didn't do for as long as I thought. But to be honest, he was telling the truth, so it's really difficult to keep going. Because obviously the pillow over the face thing, it only came from Pam. It didn't come from anyone else.
Lies. He never did it.
Her mum said if something like that had happened, I'm sure she would have told me. You'd say if.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, like, my husband was trying to suffocate me randomly. It's kind of. Yeah.
I mean, I'd do something like look scared and wave a red flag if he was in the room.
Have a little code going on.
Oh, I'm in trouble. And also he's the editor, so he'll just cut that bit out.
Fair.
Yeah. Or intersperse it with him actually murdering me. I don't know.
Yeah. Nice.
Also fair.
I know he said.
So it's probably a bit more of a thriller than a horror, but I mean, we can make it gore heavy.
Yeah.
And get stabbed over 55 times, 56 times.
Yeah. 56 to be precise. Yeah.
And
with the
definitely. Knife left in her neck, and someone else gets shot 5 times, someone else falls from a balcony. So
there's plenty of room for that then.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I would really want, so that moment, if there is a way for that moment when that my friend with the best surname ever, which I've already forgotten, comes into her house, like that to be really, really tense, and you genuinely think she's killing him in self-defense.
Yeah.
Like have her on her own and hearing noises at the door and kind of like checking through the blinds, and she's just checking to see it's the right guy, there's no one else around that's going to see, and we think she's going like, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And just kind of, yeah.
I think in terms of cast, so we've obviously got Betsy is going to be a famous cameo, I think. She did it quite quick. Someone we can afford for like half a day.
Yeah.
So we'll just see her die. We'll see her be stabbed and die, but not see who'd done it.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Mr. Faria getting home and finding her. So we need a Russ Faria, a Pam. There are incidental characters, but I think the main one should be Joel Schwartz, who is Russ's lawyer and who was the main investigating force. So he can be like our sort of renegade cop guy.
Okay.
Whilst everyone's going, this is open and shut. There's a dead wife, husband did it. Like,
yeah. And this guy is just on it.
Yeah. But which is basically what happened. So
wow.
So have him kind of, he'll be a bad guy at first. He'll be like, OJ Simpson lawyer bad, like trying to get his guilty client off with murder. But then
actually
clues will drop in, and
love it.
And then maybe we can give her the death penalty that she didn't get. Not that I believe it.
She can plead not guilty.
Yeah.
Which then is like, oh, and then she gets the death penalty because she pleaded not guilty.
I mean, I would say we're probably quite liberal people and don't agree with capital punishment, but it's a film.
Yeah, of course I don't. But like, for the sake of a film, like, what can you do?
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
So, I mean, we might do a bit more on that once Eve's caught up on some films.
Oh, we could have like a part 2. I'll watch it this week, and then when we do the next one, I'll be ready. I'll be all up on it.
Like a sort of, we should probably do film reviews as well about films that are based on true crime stuff.
And oh my gosh, yeah.
Relates to the thing. So have a film that we watch and go, so what actually happened? Because there's some quite good sort of indie horror films that are based on true crime.
Do you know what I loved? It's not a film, it's a series.
Okay.
The Act, really loved that. Which is based on it's nothing to do with this. I apologize for my epic tangent, but it's based on the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case of this young girl who basically her mum gives her Munchausen's by proxy, and is just like, my daughter can't, like, she has to be fed through a tube, like she's allergic to sugar, like everything. And then actually it turns out, like, this isn't a spoiler, but actually it turns out that this is all her mum just trying to keep power over her daughter, and it gets her, like, it's horrendous to start with anyway, just in that. But oh my gosh, I recommend it. I really enjoyed it, and I refused to read anything about the case until I'd finished it.
Okay.
And then properly read up on it.
Oh yeah, we could maybe do that.
Pardon?
We could maybe do that then, if I watch that.
I really enjoyed it. You might hate it, but I was like,
Well, I sort of like stuff like that. Although I'll listen to a podcast. Do you listen to Red Handed?
No.
It's really good. It's a podcast by 2 British women.
Oh, cool.
And they tackle much more sort of difficult stuff than I think we would want to do.
Okay.
I listened to one case that I just thought, I don't want to know anything more about this. I don't think I got to the end of it.
Oh no.
I read about it afterwards to see if anyone had got like a decent amount of punishment for it, and they hadn't. So I was like, oh, I just can't.
Yeah, I'm out.
It's like if at the start they go, animals were harmed in the making, like this, the trigger warnings of animal abuse. No.
Yeah, no.
No, grown-up people is fine sometimes, depending on what happens.
Yeah. Not the animals.
None of it's fine. It's all bad. Murder is bad.
Yeah, don't kill.
Which seems like a good place to end.
Yeah, and on that note.
So if you want to listen to our podcast earlier than the plebs, the hoi polloi, you can go to patreon.com/Mycho Entertainment. Just Mycho. But if you go to myco.co.uk, you should be able to find all our podcasts there. This Grubby Robots, the podcast Lewis and Mike do, where they grubbly robot franchises, and the MYCast interviews, and many more things to come, including, as we mentioned last time, depending on which order we put these out in, potential,
or as we will mention next time,
some pre-production stuff on real horror short films that are hopefully coming quite soon, when we can all shoot together again. Not like with a gun.
No, killing people is bad.
Killing people is bad, remember. So don't kill people, and join us next time for more real horror.
See you soon.